Greetings, gentle readers, and welcome once again to the vast and ominous comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan. Today on the vault, we're going to be taking a look at a book that I always meant to read, never got around to, and this is Lex Luthor, Man of Steel from 2005 by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo, two of my favorite guys. Lee Bermejo especially is one of my favorite artists right now. After Batman and Noel last year, I mean, I've always liked him. I read Joker, really liked that, but now we find with Noel from last year that not only is he a fantastic, wonderful, fully painted artist, but he also is a really good writer too, it turns out. So anyway, Lee Bermejo, I had to go ahead and finally read this. I went to the Superman celebration this weekend. I just got back from that today, and I brought this with me in case I got a chance to do some reading, and I figured I'd do some Superman in case I got a chance to do a vault. And so here I am now doing Lex Luthor, Man of Steel. By the way, the Superman celebration was a lot of fun. I got to have my film shown at the film festival, and that was the Meteor Method. If you haven't seen that, it was my attempt at an infomercial about kryptonite. Making fun of Smallville and a whole lot of name drops and references from Smallville. And we didn't place, unfortunately, this year. I really thought we had a really good chance, but the competition was astounding this year. It was actually a really, really good year. The fan reaction, or rather the crowd reaction, was really good for the film, so that was really great. But unfortunately, we didn't place. Do be sure, though, and check out the Superman Celebration YouTube channel and look at some of the films that were there, because I think it's the best year so far for films. There were fewer films this year, but there were a lot of really good films, and the one that won was a take of the Three Stooges doing superheroes, and it was really funny, and the production values were incredible. So anyway, be sure and go check that out if you get a chance. That film was called Super Heroes, and go watch it. It's great. But anyway, so I hung out a lot with Sid Part 2. He was there, and we got to go to the film festival, and that was a lot of fun. I got to see John Glover and Cassidy Freeman speak. That's, if you don't know, of course, they're actors from Smallville. That's, of course, Lex Luthor, John Glover being one of my very, very favorite actors. So glad I finally got to see him. And I didn't get a signature or anything. I usually try to do that, but I just didn't get a chance this time. But anyway, but I did get to see him speak, and I got to see Cassidy Freeman speak, and she's, of course, Tess Mercer, who I'll admit is not a character I love, but she was a lot of fun. So anyway, it was a good time. We had a lot of fun. And while I was there, when I had a little bit of downtime, I read this. This was put out, like I said, in 2005, and it's, like I said, Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. And basically, this was a mini-series I've got here in trade, where Lex Luthor is trying to figure out, of course, how to defeat Superman, like he's always doing. The difference is, this is entirely from Lex Luthor's perspective, and does a really good job of humanizing the character, and making him someone that we can admire to a point, and like and appreciate to a point. And I've always loved Lex Luthor, and I like him more after reading this. I love Azzarello's take on this, because he is precisely the Lex Luthor that we all know, and yet, by getting in his head, or at least I found, reading this, that I appreciated his motivations and was, at points, agreeing with him. And that's the kind of villain I love. You either got to have the villain that you love to hate, or the villain that's almost right. And what makes him a villain is that he takes his philosophy and goes far too far with it. He crosses a line. And that's what we have here. Lex here is, like, it's almost as if he's misunderstood. It's like we always see Lex as a really conceited kind of person. He's got a lot of arrogance, and he still has that, but here he seems to feel that it's warranted, and it isn't because he thinks that he was born to greatness. And he actually says that he believes that that is a misconception about reality. There's no such thing as being born to greatness. And so his arrogance and his feeling that he's above people is actually, in his mind, warranted, because he got there, because he went from nothing and became the brilliant mastermind that he is, and he lords over so much of Metropolis and everything, and he feels like it's well deserved, it's warranted, and he has that philosophy, of course, that you have to that you have to demand respect, that you have to earn respect, that it isn't just given to you. And what I really like about this book is that anybody who does that, he actually shows quite a bit of respect to. He's not the Lex Luthor that because he has all the wealth and power and everything, that he actually thinks he's better than everyone else. He very often acts that way. But what it really is if you command respect, he will give it to you. And the book opens with a scene of Lex talking with his janitor. And his janitor keeps calling him Mr. Luthor. And Lex keeps telling him to call him Lex. You get the sense that they already have a bit of a rapport. And after a while, the janitor says, well, no, it's a respect thing. I call you Mr. Luthor because of who you are. You deserve to be called Mr. Luthor. And then, of course, because of his wealth and influence and everything, Lex makes sure that the janitor's kid, who's been struggling in school, not because he's not a smart kid, but just because he doesn't like going to school, gets into a good college and gets motivated to do things and things like that. So it was a surprisingly touching scene, and yet Lex does all kinds of terrible and underhanded things, and he manipulates a big giant catastrophe to make sure that Superman ends up meeting his new creation, which is a kind of an android named Hope, who is supposed to be the embodiment of how Lex Luthor sees humanity and sees Superman. Because, again, Lex doesn't feel like he's better than everybody else. He feels like he is the example to show everybody that no matter who you are, any air-quote regular person has the ability to do just what he did. And so his problem with Superman, of course, and this is classic Lex Luthor, is that Superman is not a human being and is able to do everything for people. And Superman, in Lex's mind, in his view, takes away hope because he takes away aspiration. He takes away people's motivation to aspire to be better than they are, because he can just go around and fix things for them, and they don't have to do those sorts of things for themselves. And so, you know, a lot of people, of course, would see Superman as an example of how people should be, but Lex's problem with that is, well, he was born to greatness. He has all these superpowers, and human beings are not born to greatness. And so Superman is a threat to basic human rights and human ability, as Lex sees it. And so he creates this android, this superhero himself, named Hope, who is like I said, kind of his embodiment of what humanity is supposed to be, because a human created it. And so now we have the closest thing we can to a human equal to Superman, because a human being created something that is close, that can do things close to what Superman can do. And I won't spoil the ending, but basically Lex sets all of that up for failure. And so anyway, I think it's a fantastic book. I think that it's one of the most human looks at Lex Luthor ever. And the only problems I have with it are just some places where I think the dialogue is a little bit clunky and a little bit unnecessarily awkward. There's some stuff with Toyman, and Toyman is well handled, but there's one scene, there's this weird bit where there's like this play on words going on with Winslow Shott's name and somebody calling him Winslow Snot. It's kind of odd, and it goes along, but it goes on a little longer than it ought to. I could see a person thinking that the message, well, I don't want to call it a message, because it really isn't about, you know, Lex is right and Superman is wrong. It's that it's not that black and white, and I really like that. But I could see a person seeing some things being too heavy-handed with the character he creates being named Hope. And how many women, by the way, have we seen in recent years named Hope, who are supposed to be in some capacity or another the savior of mankind? Happens all the time. We've got an X-Men right now. I don't have a problem with it, because Lex himself is trying to make a statement with it, and I think it's really interesting. It's really hard not to, at least in some capacity, agree with Lex in this, because his whole point is, right now, Superman seems to be completely benevolent, but what if he's not? what happens when Superman at some point decides, you know what, screw it, I'm going to rule the world rather than just save it on a daily basis. And the problem for Lex, of course, is that he has the ability. He could do that at any time that he wants to, and that's always been part of Lex's character. But getting it from his perspective, it's very, very compelling. And so anyway, this is a great book. This is going up in my top list of favorite Superman stories. I really, really enjoyed it. And if you haven't read it, I think you very much ought to. And remember that the Comic Book Vault is a vast and ominous wonderland of comic books that you can both buy things from and donate to. If you want to buy something from the Comic Book Vault, you can go to wearegeeksnotnerds.com, click on the Comic Book Vault, and find out what we have for sale right now on eBay. You can also donate things to the Comic Book Vault if there's something you'd like me or Vince to review. Be sure to send it to Geekvolution, P.O. Box 14183, Lenexa, Kansas 66285. Thanks everybody as always for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and happy reading.